I chose this topic, Family as a School of Love. And it's interesting, I chose this topic just based on a quote that I had found a long time ago, and I had saved in my phone. It's like, I really like this quote. And as I was looking for something to share this week, I found this quote, and it's like, I have a long list of, on Google Keep, you can have little notes, and I have like 80 of them, and so I just kept scrolling. I know I save inspiration sometimes, so I scrolled and scrolled, and I found this quote I had saved probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm going to share it at the end of the message. But I found it interesting that the day after I chose my topic, I felt like I actually had a very interesting and deep experience in my own family that I'm going to use as a basis of my message today. So today's message is somewhat in a story form with some inspiration or quotes and guidance thrown in. So I'm going to begin with this quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. The place where we learn to give and receive love, the place where we create joy through harmony, nurture it and experience it, is none other than the family. This is the core of our faith. So yesterday, Mia, I don't know if you know, Mia has been developing a business, and she has discovered not only that she could do our own business fairs that we do here in our community, but there are similar things around the state that she can go do. So we've signed up for a couple, and yesterday, her business fair was down in Colorado Springs at the Hot Air Balloon Festival, Labor Day Liftoff, and we decided as a whole family, in the past I've kind of just driven her and taken her myself, and we're like, we're just going to do this as a whole family this time. So we planned our schedule really well and squeezed everybody plus all of her materials and canopies and tables and things into our minivan, and we had like an hour and 20-minute drive down to Colorado Springs. I was enjoying the scenery and talking with my husband and just kind of looking out the window, and then I became aware of like this increasing sound from the chairs behind me. This argumentative noise of accusing and defending, and I was like, okay, what are they saying? And I started listening to what they were arguing about, and I could tell that this was just there wasn't going to be a resolution to this. It was just like, no, and I don't normally share the names of my children when I try not to, but I feel like you won't really get the story without it. So it all began with Annalise just saying something that was a little bit silly, a little bit provocative and Mia was very offended by it. And then so she said some things about Annalise and her past that related to the thing that she said. And then Aiden was like, well, that's not fair. You can't be that mean to her just based on the one thing that she said. And then Mia's like, well, but this and this and this and this. And Aiden's like, well, this and this and this and this. Anyway, it became this huge thing. Annalise is just sitting there while they're having a whole argument over her. But I think Mike and I realized this is not going to resolve on itself. So the both of us started inputting our perspective and sharing our thoughts. And even Mike and I had differing perspectives on how we deal with this. But it was, and Annalise had to sit there and face some uncomfortable truths about herself. But it was very open, it was very honest. It wasn't particularly comfortable, especially if you were Annalise. But I felt like it brought out things that we don't normally talk about. We realized that Mia was holding in some frustrations and resentments about her little sister that she didn't feel like were being addressed. And all of these things kind of came out into the open. after a while, we kind of felt like, okay, all right. We didn't really come up with answers or resolution, but I do feel that it brought out things that needed to be brought out, and somehow, at least that was healthy. Later, so this is a long drive. We're still driving, and then we ended up having a conversation about money. We were talking about the things that we hope to do in the future as we hopefully make more money, when we have the money to do them. And then Annalise said, Grandpa said that money can't make you happy. Well, she said, love is what makes you happy. But, and then she said, but I don't think that's true. She said, I think money does make you happy, because if you can't eat and you're freezing, you're not happy. I mean, it's true, right? And I think that also maybe she wasn't feeling a whole lot of love from the previous discussion, so maybe fed into that opinion a little bit. But then we had a whole other family discussion about what that meant. Yes, it is difficult to be happy without any money. It's true. And there are a lot of things that money can be used for to create conditions for happiness. You know, you can, if you don't have money, you can't make a really, really nice meal for your family, right? You can't, if you don't even have gas money, you can't drive to the mountains and enjoy the beautiful scenery. Like, you do need money, and you can create conditions for happiness with it. But we also talked about how there's a certain point where money doesn't do much more for you, right? Once your needs are met, once you are able to take care of yourself and your family well, after a certain point, money doesn't like increase your happiness exponentially, right? There's kind of a limit to how much happiness money can buy. But we talked about with love, it's not like that, right? There's not a point where you get to a certain amount of love and it's like, well, I guess I'm good for my rest of my life. Like, I don't need any more love. I don't need to give any more love. Like, I'm good. Love is something that can be grown infinitely. You can receive increasing amounts of love and give increasing amounts of love. And you won't, no matter how much you receive or how much you give, you won't ever feel like you've hit your limit. So I have this quote from our founder. The more love you give, the more love you have, it never ends. You will have enough to give even more. Everything else comes to an end. Money, knowledge, and power all come to an end. Everything that has to do with human circumstances and recognition in the world comes to an end. Yet, eternal true love never comes to an end. No matter how much you give out, amazingly, it continues eternally. And here's another one. True love will never be exhausted. The more it is set in motion, the greater it gets. It's like a snowball effect. In mechanics, input always exceeds output. You have to put in so much, and then you get a certain amount. But in the world of love, output exceeds input. And also, we talked about how without love, no matter how much money you have, you won't be happy. So, we have finally arrived at our destination. And interestingly, after all of these kind of probing conversations where we discussed our values and our realities and our challenges, I saw my children all get along super well. We were there for 5 hours. You know, Mia's there to sell stuff, and so there's some things you can do all together or things you can see, but so this Labor Day liftoff, basically in the mornings, hot air balloons take off. People like to come early in the mornings and watch them all take off, and then there's nothing happening in the middle of the day, and then in the afternoon, evening, things start up again. There's vendors and music and food, and then they blow up the hot air balloons and have them glowing at night. So that's kind of what we were there for, was the balloon glow. But it was like hours, and because we came early to set up, and then little by little people start trickling in, And there's not a whole lot to do. But everyone helped Mia set up her booth. I was surprised to see Annalise offer to help Mia. Mia has all of her earrings clumped in they're pairs, but they're not separated into pairs. It's all clumped into a box. So every time she goes, she has to find the pairs and sort them out. And Annalise helped her to sort out all of her earrings and display them. And then Mia offered to buy Annalise something from the booth next door, which I don't know if I've ever heard Mia offer to use her own money to buy something for her sister. And then the boys came running up and Annalise, there's a guy with snakes. You have to come. And Annalise what? And so they grabbed her and ran her off to find the guy with big boa constrictors. And then they took her around to all the different vendors. You know, at these things, there's always people giving away free stuff. Where you spin the wheel and you get a free. Annalise got a free Raising Cane's T-shirt that she's wearing today. She's so happy. But then Annalise came back and Mia was like, oh, you got a Raising Cane's shirt? I want one. But she couldn't go anywhere because she was at her booth. So Annalise grabbed me and she was like, let's go. You can spin the wheel, Mom. Maybe you'll get a shirt for Mia. And so she took Mia around to go to all the booths and try to get free stuff for her sister. In the end, the show got rained out. We never got to see the balloons. Right before, just as they were starting to unroll them and turn on the hot air, we could see this wall of rain coming over Pikes Peak, and the announcers are like, shelter in place, everybody, go to your cars. So we all ran back and packed up everything. Mia didn't even make that much money. We totally got rained out and went home early. But we all went home happy. As we were going to bed last night, I told Mike, I was like, this was a really nice thing we did. It was a really good day. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why at that time, but as I was reflecting, I understood why. As I've shared with many of you before, I feel like my mission in life is to create a truly loving family where love is palpable, where it's free-flowing between parents and children, and not only between us and our children, but among our children, right, in all different directions. And then that love expands and pulls others in. And I felt like despite our challenges, I somehow saw that on display yesterday, where all my kids were taking care of each other and giving to each other, even though they had been intensely arguing on the way down. So I felt like my mission was realized yesterday, not because it was super fun or that we all got along or that everything went the way we planned, because it wasn't like that the whole day. But the relationships were opened up and re-examined and developed, and then the love I felt was visible throughout the day, in action. So perhaps you have had experiences where you felt exposed to a love that was so big, it's almost overwhelming. And so big that it doesn't even make sense. Where could this love possibly come from? You're overly blessed. You're never going to find this kind of love or this kind of experience in selfish love, right? Unfortunately, many people in this world only know love in the context of, I do this for you and you do this for me, or I'm being nice to you so that I can take from you. Many people only know what human-centered, selfish, and toxic love looks like. But if you have had the experience of being loved with true love, you know what I'm talking about. It almost feels like it shouldn't be possible to be loved this much. That kind of love isn't of this world. Because it's not, right? It isn't. It's from God. When we experience true love, it's because we're tapping into the source, right? We're tapping into the original, limitless, unending love of God. I have this quote from Ephesians. This is Paul's prayer for Ephesians. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. That's a huge quote. So this is the kind of love that we want to experience. But where it begins is in the family, right? That's God's original, what's it called? God's original organization? Blueprint? There we go. Thank you, Peggy. That's where it all begins. That's where God's, right? Initially in the beginning with Adam and Eve and their children, that was like where everything was supposed to start from. And unfortunately, that's where everything did start from, but not in the way that God hoped. And yet, in order to restore that, it also, like the good things and true love, has to start from within the family. It's very difficult to learn true love if you haven't experienced in the family. It's not impossible, but for it to be natural and free-flowing and come easy, it has to be experienced in the family, where you are born into love, you receive love growing up, and if that's all you know, then that's naturally what you give out. So I feel like this really touches on what our faith is really all about. If I were to go back to the beginning quote, right? The place where we learn to give and receive love, the place where we create joy through harmony, nurture it and experience it, is none other than the family. This is the core of our faith. And I have one quote, my original inspirational quote that started this whole thing is this one. God is not interested in a world of worship and religion. You won't hear that in most churches. This is not what we were created for. He wants a world of true families, a world where everyone becomes one with him, representing him in heart and love. So when we're in the family, we experience, right? We tap into that limitless, unending, true love. Then we can become somebody who represents God's love to the world, to give them that experience of being overwhelmed with the true love of God. And that is my hope for all of us. In one, we're all in different families. We all come from different walks of life. Some of us might be like, yeah, that is my experience growing up. And some of you might be like, I don't know. However, that is God's end goal for each one of us, right? And if that wasn't where you started from, it doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up, because God's end goal is the same for all of us. So please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for this beautiful Sunday after all these rains and the beautiful sunshine to warm us. And it reminds us of your love that is always there for us. And sometimes we just have to part the clouds or go outside to be able to feel it. And I pray that as we go into this week, that we can be reminded that your love is there, that it is so high and so wide and so deep. And you are just desperate for us to be able to tap into that love, because it must be the hardest thing for you to have all that love to give to your children and see us struggling along without realizing the love that you have for us. But I pray that we can open up our hearts, that we can open up our relationships with each other and tap into your love and become people who can represent that love to the world around us. And thank you so much for your guidance as we take steps to becoming these beautiful families that you envision for us. And then we can create that family experience within our community as well. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, Blessed and Show family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.